Thanks, Denny. And again, it's good to see everyone. I want to begin our conversation with a moment of prayer. I'm inspired by this particular moment in the Jewish cycle, in the Jewish year. We recently completed the celebration of Passover, and that initiates a 7-week period in the year, which is meant to call to mind the journey from Egypt to Mount Sinai, really the journey from oppression to freedom to revelation. And so it's a season where we consider the possibility that we can transform the world. We can move from one place to another. We can eliminate the challenges and the limitations, the oppressions and sufferings that are so prevalent in our city and in our world. The blessing I'll recite is the traditional one for this season of the year. It says, Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat ha'omer. And I would translate that in this context as, blessed is God who urges us to count each day and to make each day count. Blessed is God who urges us to see blessings in each day, to see opportunities for growth and transformation each day. Blessed is God who allows us to have our eyes open to the suffering and to the needs of our city, and to find the wisdom and the courage and the strength to respond to those needs. Blessed is God who has brought us together today. May our conversations and reflections lift us up and send us forth to do the important work of transformation. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And just interrupt me, please, when it's time. So just to go through these fairly quickly, we are the Climate Justice Task Force, and we do have relationships with other people. We have a diverse group who has been very supportive. But as a task force, I just got to make this thing smaller.
For the benefit of our eyes, we love it that size.
No, I'm trying to make, but I'm having trouble finding my cursor. I'm trying to make the this smaller. There, get that out of the way. Okay. Oh, doesn't want to. I can't seem to locate my cursor. Anyways, all right. So as a task force of Rock Acts, we who are working for climate justice, this isn't going to work, acknowledge that racism has been a driver for environmental harm, including in our community. Therefore, we commit to listening to the individuals and communities who have been most harmed. So climate justice means finding solutions to the climate crisis that not only reduce emissions or protect the natural world, but that do so in such a way that the world is then more fairer, more just, and more equitable in the process. So as injustice is the root cause of the climate crisis, so fighting for justice must be at the heart of the solutions. All right. I don't know why. Okay, I am going to get out of this full mode. I don't know why things aren't responding to me. Oh, there we go. But that wasn't next. Let's see if we can go back. Okay. So climate justice in the United States, I just have a few photos here. Young people have really been in the forefront of the climate effort because they recognize that their very future is at risk. It terrifies them. And they don't get why the older folks aren't quite paying as much attention. Even though you look at what's going on in our world, disastrous fires and floods. There's a picture down in the lower left-hand corner. Rising temperatures in Alaska have caused the permafrost to be so, softened that the very shoreline and the people who live there, you see the buildings that have been there forever falling into because the permafrost has become softened. In our world, you know, weather disasters have become so much more intense, more water, more wind, resulting in, you know, just disastrous efforts for the very poorest parts of the world. And then what happens is instead of those countries being able to invest in infrastructure to protect themselves from these, they have to pour all their money into just recovering from what's happening there. Same thing happening in our country. You see the money we pour into getting over hurricanes and floods and fires, instead of putting money into reducing our emissions and protecting our cities from, you know, rising water levels. So taking a justice-based approach to emissions reductions means leaving no one behind in the transition to a low carbon economy. So this means everyone's essential need to housing, transportation, jobs, energy use, fair work, with a special attention to low-income people. So climate justice, you know, we tend to think of, is this a tree hugging issue? Not at all. This is our very economy. So climate justice means that low-income housing is warm and safe and energy needs are met with affordable, sustainable, healthy energy. They should not be left behind for our own benefit. You know, all those buildings emitting you know, greenhouse gases into the air threaten us, and we ignore do we need to go on to Asim? Okay, but climate justice means that the jobs created to insulate homes and businesses, install energy efficient solar, air-to-air heat exchange, geothermal systems, all those are union jobs, hiring and training people from the communities that are being served. So climate justice means that low-income neighborhoods have abundant shade trees and gardens for both food and beauty. So from a religious perspective, I keep hearing somebody, is it time for Asim? Maybe
He hasn't come in as far as I know.
Okay.
Well,
I can
Ryan
only
is here.
see a few
Ryan is here, but
people.
please proceed, Ruth. We can wait.
Okay. All right. So from my own tradition, we all know Pope Francis wrote his beautiful encyclical Laudato Si. You know, and some of the things he says are so profound that apply to all of us. The urgent challenge to protect our common home includes a concern to bring the whole human family together to seek a sustainable and integral development, for we know that things can change. The Creator does not abandon us. He never forsakes his loving plan or repents of having created us. Humanity still has the ability to work together in building our common home. Here I want to recognize, encourage, and thank all those striving in countless ways to guarantee the protection of the home which we share. Do you recognize that young woman in the photo? She certainly is one. Yes, we all can thank her. But then he also says the natural environment is a collective good, the patrimony of all humanity and the responsibility of everyone. If we make something our own, it is only to administer it for the good of all. That, you know, our faith of all sorts of faiths bring that sense that the goods of the world are everybody's goods, that it's not for one person to grab more than our share. So that is why the New Zealand bishops asked what the commandment, thou shalt not kill, means when 20% of the world's population consumes resources at a rate that robs the poor nations and future generations of what they need to survive. And of course, we know that's us, that part of the world. But it's not just the Catholics. I have just a few short statements because there are many varieties of Christian statements. There are Buddhists, there are Hindu, Baha'i, the Muslims. This is one example of a Muslim statement, just saying about the growing awareness, and a quote from the Quran. Corruption has appeared in the land and the sea. by what the hands of humankind have wrought, that he may let them taste some consequence of their deeds, so that they might turn back. Or the Jewish Climate Leadership Coalition's founding statement, laying it out there, climate crisis is real. You know, I have statements from so many religions that affirm that we're all in this together. So for the Rock Act's Climate Justice Task Force, we're still finding our way. We're learning and listening to see how we can best impact our community. But so far, we've been focusing on 3 areas: advocacy, gardens and green space, and affordable, sustainable retrofits for city churches and their congregants. We worked on the RG&E rate case, advocating and getting people to make phone calls. We worked on the Climate Jobs and Justice campaign, which is run by New York Renews. So we've been working on that. And that's not just about climate. That is, again, about fairness. It's about jobs. It's about housing. It's about making sure we're putting resources where people need it most. So the task force has invited speakers from a variety of city residents who are leading efforts to establish gardens and green spaces. Lucienne Nicholson from Inclusive Woods and us. And we worked on a garden that Flower City Noir was putting in. I have some pictures on the left. That garden is very close to where the Daniel Prude Garden is, right off Jefferson, right on Samuel McCree Way. And it's also the site of one of the many monuments to people who have died by violence, by gun violence in this city. So, you know, it's a fitting memorial. You can see they're laying down the cardboard and putting the compost soil. The one on the right is up off of Bay Street, a beautiful, beautiful garden that just was part of a tree canopy tour. It was fascinating to see it. But there's so much urban gardening going on in our city, and we want to support that and not make it harder for people to do. It's good for food, it's good for green space, it's good for building community, to have beautiful places where people can gather. It's actually been shown to reduce violence when you have green spaces like this that draw people to them. So one thing that we're really working on right now is affordable, sustainable retrofits for city churches and their congregants. So a game changer, the Inflation Reduction Act now provides a 30% rebate on such energy saving things as solar panels and geothermal systems, insulation, windows. And this applies to nonprofits. It used to just be a tax benefit, but now nonprofits can get this rebate. Unfortunately, 30% off doesn't help a small congregation with fewer resources. So we're working with RECA and with others to facilitate getting that covered. They're actually, one group we're working with is the Climate Solutions Accelerator. Brett Peters is the commercial energy advisor. And we're each applying for some grants that will help to bring some funds to Rochester that could be available to these lower income congregations. But it's really important that those congregations right now get connected with Brett and get an energy audit so that they're in line for some of those resources, because it helps to have that work done first. So we're working on reaching out and connecting to the faith communities in the city of Rochester to try and make that happen. I know I was having a conversation with Reverend Cunningham. We already have connected the Abundant Life Faith Center, and they've had their energy audit. So they're in line for that. Partners. So RECA, this really came out. There's several people from RECA that are on the Climate Justice Task Force. And New York Renews. We are a partner with New York Renews. They're a great advocacy organization. But RECA, so you TIAR folks, I'm sorry, there's a little overlap in what you're getting tomorrow, but I did want to touch bases about RECA. RECA is Rochester Area Interfaith Climate Action, and it was founded by a religiously diverse group of individuals who are driven by our faith to create a meaningful response to climate change and want to provide resources for other people of faith to really act that out within their congregations and in the rest of our community. So our website has a lot of great resources. If we have a few minutes, I'll go back to that, including a getting started guide, but it's an easy website. I really encourage you to take a look at it. I've put a bunch of blogs up there recently that have a lot to do with climate justice. So take a look at our blogs, take a look at our getting started guide. We've been working on a lot of campaigns, and ROCAX is one of them, this climate justice task force. We are having a summit May 7th. I really hope most of you come, or get people from your congregations to come, because you're going to learn so much about what's going on in this retrofitting world, who's out there, and what can you do to make your own facilities more energy efficient, and help help yourself be more comfortable speaking about climate change and in the environment, because it's a challenge. I know people have steered clear of it for a while, but it's so essential to our faith that we really speak up for our earth. So RECA's first step in merging its commitment to racial justice and climate justice was to work with Abundant Life Faith Center to establish the Daniel Prude Peace Garden. And, we still work at helping to maintain that, and we still work closely. We have a nice relationship with Abundant Life. That's Joe and Valerie Prude in the middle. Joe is Daniel's brother and Joe's wife. So New York Renews is currently organizing around climate, jobs, and justice. This is what I'm saying about, it's not just about the environment. It's how can we build an economy around making our world a livable world, and making it fair and just, that we have just jobs, and that we take care of the housing of all people, not just those who can afford to put more insulation or new windows or new energy retrofits on their house. Everybody should have access to this. And how are we going to fund it? So already New York State has some great great laws, but we haven't really figured out a way to pay for it yet. So advocating for making polluters and the ultra-rich pay. So, and that's another part of New York Renews. Here's the RECA Interfaith Climate Summit, May 7th. We'll have plenary sessions. So we'll have start out inspiring you spiritually, getting you directed towards how that means physical work here in our community. Really expert people for our plenary, for our breakout sessions, tabling with people from the solar industry, geothermal industry, all kinds of folks that can answer your questions, and opportunities for networking and talking to people as well. We'll be at Temple Caucus. Thank you, Rabbi Peter. And we're going to be excited to be there. And so I've run through those. Love to do Q&A, but I think it's time to go to Asim.
Thank you so much, Ruth. We will get back to you,
Okay.
but we do want to give time now to Asim and to Ryan. Did he pop off again?
I
Oh,
see.
no, he's on. I see
Yep,
his.
we're here.
Good. Asim Johnson works with the 1199 SEIU union. We work very closely together. And he has brought along with him Ryan Acuff, who you all know from Housing Initiative. So you're on, Asim and Ryan.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mack. And I'll actually turn it over to Ryan to talk about the specifics of the campaign for a good cause, as well as upcoming action. But just wanted to give more context. As the chair of the Poverty, Housing, and Jobs Task Force, myself and Reverend Ted Polano, who is my co-chair for the task force. We've been working closely with the Citywide Tenants Union, Vocal New York, and the WFP around housing and housing accountability for the city and the county. And I'll turn it over right now to talk about some of the updates that we have and upcoming events that we're looking to put together. And we'll love the support of the caucus.
Awesome. Thanks, Asim. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I'll try to be brief. I know it sounds like you guys have a pretty packed agenda here. But my name is Ryan. I'm with the Citywide Tenant Union of Rochester. Our mission is to elevate housing to a human right by means of resident and community control over land of housing through a strategy of tenant power. So really centering tenants and folks most impacted by the housing crisis to support people, to organize tenants associations for better conditions in their buildings, but then also to change, sort of address the root causes of the housing crisis and change policies and change some of the structures that got us to where we are today. Just some of the key things that are kind of happening in this moment, so our organization, Citywide Tenant Union, is part of a statewide alliance called the Housing Justice for All campaign. And, was part of 80 organizations across the state where we're trying to change some key state laws to better protect tenants, to create more housing stability, and ultimately stabilize the entire community. Because we believe that housing stability is foundational for public safety, for educational, quality education, mental health, and health in general. So currently there's two key bills that we're fighting for in the New York State budget. So people may be following this kind of saga that's happening on the state level, but the New York State budget every year is due April 1st. And basically there's been a major sort of debate over two issues. So one of them is, according to the Speaker of the Assembly, Carl Hastie, there's hold up with the budget with 1A, which is issues around bail reform and rolling back aspects of that. And 1B, as he says, is housing. So the two key bills that we've been fighting for with partners in the city and across the state are, one is the good cause eviction protections. So basically this would end the practice of landlords being to evict tenants without cause. So just as it is right now, a landlord can, tenants month to month or leases up, can just give a 30, 60, or 90-day notice terminating tenancy, even if tenants have paid all their rent, even if they haven't violated the lease, even if they haven't caused any issues for anybody. So this opens the ground for massive retaliation for if someone tries to get repairs in their unit, or massive rent hikes. So a major driver of displacement throughout the city. So this is a key, it's really building off decades of work. New Jersey has had these protections since 1974, every tenant in New Jersey. So we're just trying to catch up, in New York. And this bill specifically, we've been advocating for 4 years. And we're, it's at the center of the debate right now between the Senate, Assembly, and the governor. The second key bill that we're fighting for is called the Housing Access Voucher Program, or HAVP, which basically is meant to be a funding as a lifeline out of homelessness. So, as people might be aware in our system, when people become homeless, often they get trapped in the shelter system for long periods of time, or people stay in very unsafe situations. Some people may be homeless, staying in maybe a violent situation, domestic partner violence, and they stay in the situation that's because they have no other housing available to them. So this is to create, basically expand. So if you are housing, what's that? I thought someone spoke about. If someone is housing insecure, it's able to, so the rent would be, they could get out of shelters or unsafe situations and have their rent paid, many ways, kind of like the Section 8 program, the federal Section 8 program. Where tenants aren't paying more than 30% of their income on rent. The problem with Section 8 is that it's not funded as an entitlement, like Medicaid or SNAP, right? You could be eligible for Section 8, but only 1 out of 5 tenants who are eligible for Section 8 can get it. It's intentionally underfunded to create this deep, deep housing stability in our country, right? To create structural homelessness and insecurity. So the state, which is the 11th, if it was its own country, it would be the 11th largest economy in the world, can do something about this, right? They can fund their own kind of Section 8 type program, the housing access voucher. So we want to do eviction protections to keep people out of homelessness, out of poor conditions. We want to offer a lifeline and funding to get people out of homelessness, out of unsafe situations. So these are kind of the 2 key bills that we're fighting for. We really have some support from both the Senate and Assembly leadership, and opposition from the governor on these proposals. And then as far as our local delegation, the 5 state legislators that represent portions of the city of Rochester, 4 of them wholeheartedly are co-sponsors and publicly in support of these 2 bills. So that's Senator Sonoma Brook and Assembly members Harry Bronson, Sarah Clark, and Damon Meeks. So the challenge has been ensuring up support, has been with one of our local senators, Senator Jeremy Cooney, who represents the west side of Rochester, Greece, and Brighton, and some portions of downtown. And so this is an immediate action coming up, is around the senator to try to shore up support for him. And basically when he ran for election the first time, he was in support of good cause eviction protection. When he was elected and became a senator, he was a co-sponsor of the bill. Then he signed off the bill. Unfortunately, it came to light that he's taken donations from the Manhattan real estate lobby, and now he takes the 2nd most real estate contributions of any senator outside of New York City. So it's gotten a little challenging. So, but we really want to show some resolve and continue to encourage him to act on behalf of his constituents and the community. So one of the actions that we're going to be taking tomorrow is we're just going to be doing a group office visit with a tenant. What's that? Okay, I think I saw someone talking, sorry. But we're going to be doing an office visit with a tenant that lives in his district. She's a mother of 7 who's facing a no cause eviction tomorrow. So she has a court date tomorrow at 2 p.m. And we're going to be doing a group office visit led by this particular tenant, Yadira. And just to highlight, what's going on with his own constituents, because he continues to say, he's saying, I don't support it. There are he says there's unintended consequences that'll hurt the rental supply in upstate New York. This is what he's put in writing, these type of things. We're not aware of any evidence of that, but we are aware of every single day people living in housing insecurity, people getting terminated, no cause evictions, and people's rents going up dramatically. So this is just one way we're trying to shore up support. I know we were planning potentially a faith-based press conference on Monday. We didn't necessarily get it together in all the ways we wanted to in time, but that's something we want to potentially partner with. If folks are still interested in the future. So regardless of what happens in the budget, which may or not be done quickly, we don't know, but we're still going to be advocating strongly on this till June 8th, which is the end of the legislative session. So we really just want to get our senator on board. We can't change the entire state balance of power, but if we could get our 5 legislators clear, consistent, taking a strong issues on housing rights, this will change the budget negotiations. This will change the housing negotiations, and it will help our community and communities across the state. So that's why we're focusing on Senator Cooney at this moment. So I'll just leave it there for now, but I'm open if people have any clarifying questions or thoughts, anything like that.
And Asim, what would you add to that?
I would just add, once again, of the chair of the Poverty Housing and Jobs Task Force. This is going to be an ongoing battle. Would love the support of folks here on the call, as well as if you can help to spread the word within your respective networks. As a task force, we meet the first Thursday of each month from 6 to 7. Can definitely get that information over to y'all, and would love for you to join us as we continue this fight around housing, jobs, and overall creating a better and just community here in the city of Rochester. And thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time to speak with the group. And I really hope that we can get some support for the action tomorrow.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, so tomorrow for folks that are available and interested, we're just going to be doing a group office visit centered around this tenant at 12:30 at his office downtown, his district office. And even for folks that, what's that? Oh, and even for folks who aren't able to make it, I can just put a little link in the chat, is that people can go to this link and they can sign on, and there'll be an automatic call where people can call their senator. You know, people live in the city or close to the city, people are either represented by Senator Brook or Senator Cooney, but so this is an automatic call into the office, you know, just to say that you support these protections to get people out of homelessness and keep them housed. And then even if Senator Cooney is not your senator, if you're not a constituent, we would still encourage folks just to call to say that this is a priority for the community. So thank you.
Thanks so much. What's Cooney's phone number? Have you Jeremy Cooney's phone number?
Yeah, let me pull it up real quick here. I have it on the phone here.
Yeah, because when Duncan sends me the chat, it's not highlighted, so you can't just click it. And that's an awful lot of numbers and letters to repeat.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, so his district office phone number downtown is 225-3650.
Okay, I'll certainly call. I wish I could be with you tomorrow. I'm going to pray for you from the meeting I have been committed to.
Thank you. And we'll be having more events, and we'll get people
Let us
partner
know.
and give people a lot of lead time in the future. So
Great. Let us know. I know that some of your work you can't give lead time. I understand that, but when you can do, and we want to hear from you, even if you can't give us lead time, because maybe somebody can show up.
great.
Thanks so much for all you both do.
Thank you so much for
Tremendously important. I went with Asim just last week to Albany on the New York State budget, that the Medicaid rate would not be cut. Instead, it would be raised, because healthcare workers, being essential, might deserve a living wage. It does seem to make sense, doesn't it?
yes.
Yeah. All of this is connected, every bit of it. I would like to spend more time with both of you and with Ruth and with each one of you, because I know the work you're doing is so important. Now we will hear from Kim, and then we will go back and hear more from question Ruth, question Kim, and see how we can support and how we can work together. Kim is the executive director of Family Promise, and the church that I've worked in for 20 years until I recently retired was one of the founding hosts for RAIN, and we valued our interactions with the homeless families, and we're delighted to support that organization and under its new name, because the work is tremendously important. So Kim, we're eager to hear from you.
Thank you, Denny. I'm also going to share my screen. And have a PowerPoint to share with all of you. Actually, Ryan, your presence on here is so opportune because I have some advocacy efforts at the end of this presentation, and one is about housing justice for all and that link about the voucher program and the good cause. So yes, I agree, Denny, it's all connected. Climate, housing, equity, justice. So thank you. Let's see. Okay, does everybody see this?
Mhm.
Okay. Yes, like Denny said, we are formally known as RAIN, Rochester Area Interfaith Hospitality Network, now known as Family Promise of Greater Rochester. We changed our name a few years ago to align with the National Organization of Family Promise located in New Jersey. And it seemed to make sense because at that time we were branching out from a shelter program to prevention and stabilization. So I want to start with this image just to show how everything is connected. So we have the organization in the middle, which is accessed by individuals, households, families. That organization, individuals are largely impacted by what's going on in a community. For sake of our talk today at the City of Rochester, all of this is greatly impacted, as we all know, by the systems that are in place. Many of these systems are inequitable and unjust, and that's I think what Rock Acts does such a wonderful job of bringing to light and giving space to those issues. So I thought I'd first just run through kind of the overview of Family Promise. For those of you, I think most people probably know about Family Promise or RAIN, but we did change our mission and vision. So I just wanted to give a brief overview of where we're at as an organization before I get into more of the systemic issues about housing and housing as a human right. So the mission of Family Promise of Greater Rochester will assist families at risk of or experiencing homelessness to achieve sustainable independence by providing person-centered, holistic services in collaboration with the greater community. And our vision, Family Promise of Greater Rochester will have achieved success when affordable, decent, equitable housing is seen as a human right, and every family has a place to call home. And this is us. We are a small staff of 7. I have been with the organization for 13 years. I can't believe it. And we've gradually grown. We started out as largely a grassroots organization with the support of the national organization, which I mentioned. We do not get any financial support from national. We get support through programming. They might send a grant our way, a grant opportunity. They certainly provide support to me as an ED, but no financial support. So here we all are, wonderful staff. We truly support each other. So a bit of history. We opened our doors in April 26th of 2004, again, as RAIN. Our founders, Nancy Frank and Reverend Roderick Froman. Many of you probably know Reverend Froman and perhaps Nancy Frank got together and recognizing the increasing of family homelessness in our community, decided to open an affiliate in the Rochester community. So the national organization, again, is based in New Jersey. There are over 200 affiliates throughout the United States following this model of interfaith hospitality, which was our founding model. So Nancy and Rod got together and decided to open an affiliate here. And it's largely the history of Family Promise is that it's largely the utilization of volunteers. So as Denny mentioned, congregations living out faith through acts of social justice. So at one time you had 1,800 trained volunteers that helped us walk alongside families as they were experiencing homelessness. So the founder, Karen Olson, I always like to share this quote. A simple act of compassion set in motion a national movement to end family homelessness. And our 3 core programs. Prevention and diversion program is now our largest program. It provides families with security deposits and rental assistance to help prevent them from becoming homeless or entering a shelter. So we get about 200. We currently have an online portal for rental assistance. We had to move to an online portal because of the number of requests we were receiving over the last few years. So we open the portal for 1 week every month. We get about 200 requests through that portal. Our budget restricts us to helping about 10 households. So if you do the math, that's about 4% of those that request assistance. We are able to actually provide assistance to. The rental assistance, of course, is to prevent an eviction. Ultimate goal is to keep a family housed, of course, to maintain that stability and avoid the trauma of being unhoused. Security deposits are for families that are doubled up or in unsafe situations. We decided last year to restrict our security deposits to that population of households versus families exiting shelters, because in shelters, it sounds weird to say, but they have the ability to have a Vispidat done and be put on the waiting list and perhaps get rapid rehousing. So we saw a greater need as those families who are doubled up or need to leave unsafe situations. So we provide security deposits to those households. And then of course, our shelter program, which is what we've been doing in the community since 2004. We are very low barrier. The family defines their family unit. That means that we are LGBTQ friendly. We don't really screen out for anything. If you need shelter and we have the ability to house you, to help you, we will bring you into shelter. You do have to have a child in your custody, age 18 years of age or younger. And really the transition from utilizing congregational space to apartment space has allowed us to be even more low barrier and truly family-centered and trauma-informed. So while I personally sometimes yearn for those days of having families utilize space at congregations, we do believe that what we're doing now using apartment space in the community is just better all around for the families coming into the program. And our aftercare and stabilization program provides case management support. This is really, I think, what sets us apart from other shelter programs, because we do provide a year of support if needed after transitioning from both the shelter program and prevention and diversion. So we're there to walk alongside a family in case advocacy is needed, or a family needs help with healthcare or school or whatever needs arise. And then if you've checked your email, for those of you on our mailing list, we announced this today. We are starting a transitional housing program because we all know that accessible, affordable, equitable housing is few and far between in our community. So we just purchased our building at 142 Webster Avenue. We closed on it on March 17th. And there are 4 apartments overhead, 3 of which we have access to. And in June, we will be kicking off a transitional housing program. We'll share more about that, and just watch our social media and read the letter that's headed your way, both in snail mail and email. So just to dive a little bit into our prevention and diversion, we assisted 104 families in 2022. We give an average of $930 per household. This is compared to, we spend about $1,400 per family in shelter. So you can see going upstream to prevent an eviction is not only better for the family, but it's more effective financially. I talked about the requests that come in, and most of our referrals do come through 211 Lifeline or direct contact. And for those of you who have been over to our place on Webster Avenue, this is the front of it. The only thing missing from the picture is an extra poster that right now says "Stop White Supremacy." This is our day center at 142 Webster Avenue. We have been here since 2017. I mentioned the 4 apartments that are available on the 2nd floor for our future transitional housing program. And then we have 6 apartments on Portland Avenue and Ketchum Street for shelter. You all know that we transitioned from the use of congregational space. You may not know that we had a brief stint in hotels, realizing that that was not family centered. We moved to the apartment model of shelter, and we're still using that model. 30 families were assisted through our shelter program in 2022. We received over 600 calls for shelter in 2022. Compared to an average of about 200 to 300 in previous years, even before the pandemic. So lifting of that eviction moratorium in January really impacted the number of families calling for shelter. as well as just the lack of housing and being able to move families out of shelter into permanent housing. 66% of families transition into permanent housing, again, very low for us. It's usually closer to 80, again, speaks to the lack of affordable, adequate, decent housing in our community. This is a snapshot of one of the apartments we use for shelter. And we reached a point in the presentation when I want to do some engagement with you all. It's easier to do this in person, but I've asked you all to think of a word or an image that comes to mind when you think about home. And you can put it into chat if you want to come off mute and just share a word. Anything that comes to mind when you think about home.
Safe.
Yes.
Hmm?
Love.
Yeah. Family, yes. Welcomed. Mm-hmm. My pets, nice, Rebecca.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
also asset.
Asset, very important, Denny.
Security. Yeah.
Independence, security, yes, comfortable. Yeah. So we kind of get a sense, right, of how what people think about home and how important home is. It's comfort, it's safety, it's where our beloved things are, our pets, our books, our pictures, our it should be, home should be the most comfortable, safe place, right, that we can return to at the end of a hard day. Independence, asset, Denny, all of these things. So think about if you didn't have the concept of home, if you didn't have that, how your life would be different. So I want you to kind of keep in mind as we go through the rest of the presentation, keep that in mind. Think about not having those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to revisit the vision statement, and we touched on this. I think I can't remember if it was Ruth that talked, or maybe it was Ryan, about affordable housing. So housing should really cost, right? This is something that probably a lot of us learned, that housing should cost 30% or less of a household's monthly income. So that's really the definition of affordable. Decent housing. Housing shouldn't have violations. Again, that concept of safety, right? You want to feel emotional, psychologically, physically safe in your home. And then equitable. Housing that's available to all, regardless of gender, sex, race, ethnicity, ability, religion, gender expression. Housing should be equitable. Now, when you think about the circle, we've talked about the organization, we're going to move out to the community circle. And we know Rochester abysmal. We have an overall poverty rate of 31.3 compared to a national average of 12.3. We continue to rank third poorest among the 75 largest metropolitan areas in the US, only behind Detroit and Cleveland.
Oh my.
What's happening, right? What's happening in Rochester? Again, more community stats. The average rent of a one-bedroom apartment in Rochester is, I think it's $938. It's covered up by my thumbnails over here, $975. A TANF grant for a family of 3. So temporary assistance to needy families. A TANF grant for a family of 3, a cash grant for rent is $786. Doesn't add up, right? For every 100 low-income household in need of housing in Rochester, 27 units are available. I see a hand up, so should I stop, Denny, and take a question?
Sure. If it's up to you, if you feel comfortable with it.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, to those of us that have the pulse of the community and are out here, I had a family that was in in crisis. And, you know, even after calling, I think it's 211, I didn't have your information. And when I called that crisis hotline, they did not give me your information. So it sounds like your organization is more or less a godsend, but if nobody knows about it, well, I'm not going to say nobody. If people that are connected to the community and the voices of some of the people that are hurting, it's not beneficial. So I'd like to make sure that you and I hook up, or we do a one-on-one together, for you to let me know what's going on, because there have been especially 2 examples. One, the child ran away from home, and then the mother got evicted. The baby had asthma, and they stored them in the hotel. And it was like the next day, they were going to kick them out at 1 o'clock. And it's frantic when you want to help people and you don't know how to navigate what's out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm just, I'm coming as a pastor, but even if I came from a layman's perspective, we should know what's going on. And that 2119, that 211 number, or 311, don't get it.
Yeah, it should be easier to navigate. I agree. All the systems that are in place to hold people in poverty are intentionally made to be difficult to navigate, I believe.
And that's sad.
It's sad, right? It should be as easy to find shelter for someone as it is to order a gallon of milk from, your phone, which is pretty.
And don't get me wrong. If you are getting funds allocated to you to do stuff and you're doing stuff, then the bullhorn should go out. People should know about you, and they don't.
Well, 211, that's surprising. I think 211 sometimes has high turnover because they are constantly sending. Sometimes they're constantly sending us folks for prevention funding. So that's surprising. So maybe it's time to revisit 211 and remind them of the services that we have. Yeah. So thank you for that. Okay, so I like to share this budget because I think it shows in a snapshot the reality. So the reality is that a lot of the families we see coming into any of our programs are working. The last time I ran stats on this a couple years ago, it was the year before COVID. 60% of our families in shelter were employed full-time. So this is an actual family's budget. So making minimum wage, $14.20 an hour, 35 hours a week, which is full-time, $25,800 a year, which translates to net of $1,600 a month. So rent is $848, which is 53% of the total income. Utilities, $200. You can see the budget. So what you're left with at the end is $7 at the end of the month. What you don't see on this budget is what, right? Food, necessities. This is a mom with 2 children. There are for sure necessities in this household. So it's just not sustainable. So then we move out in those concentric circles. Let's move out to the systems. So we've looked at the organization, meaning Family Promise. We've looked at our community. Now look at the systems. Why is this housing equity? Why do we have such poverty rates in Rochester? And why is housing equity so difficult to achieve? An individual or family's experience of homelessness, poverty is often a result of systemic failure, right? We saw an 80%, most of us were alive between 1972 and 1992. So we know there was an 80% reduction in federal investment in affordable housing. We know there was a deinstitutionalization of the mental health care system, right? We know these things, these all impact today the inequities we're seeing in housing. And we also know that we have a long history in this nation of systemic racism that still exists today in our neighborhoods, region, and country through redlining, federal housing opportunity loans, racial covenants, all lead and have led to today's racial wealth gap and the inability to maintain a living wage and to build equity through home ownership. Some facts that I like to share just to really give an idea of the impacts of history on our city. The most segregated school district border in the country exists between New York's Rochester City School District, which has a poverty rate of 47%, and neighboring Penfield, which has a poverty rate of just 5%. And I cross that line every day. I live in the Brighton Browncroft neighborhood. My kids went to school at Penfield. It takes me 7 minutes to get to work. 7 minutes from Corwin Road in the Brighton Browncroft neighborhood. I go out, I turn, I go under the 590 overpass. I cross this line. I go from 85% white neighborhood. And I do this sometimes as I'm driving. Oh, 60% white, 50% white, 40% white. And then it turns into 85 to 90% community of color, right? As you go from my neighborhood 7 minutes away. So that's an intentional line to segregate our district. It's the most segregated school district border in the country. And in fact, 5 of Rochester School District's 8 borders are listed among the most segregated in the country. And we all know why housing is important, right? We shared some of the concepts of home. It leads to healthier individuals, families, communities. If the family is stable, a community is stable. Stable employment, the community is more likely to be safe. There's a less concentration of poverty. So healthy communities leads to private sector investment. Folks might be more willing to invest in a neighborhood to build up neighborhoods, strengthening of neighborhood institutions. So to go back to the image that I shared in the beginning, the concentric circles, to me, it's broken, right? To me, it's the systems are broken, which impact our community, which impact our organization, which impact our households, impact all of us. All systems collaborate for good or bad. Education, housing, healthcare, you can't better one without bettering them all and vice versa. So I added this, not a violent person at all, but there's a part of me that feels like we just need to get rid of the systems and start all over. They're not working. So what do we do here at Family Promise as a response? Well, like I said, we do our best to provide families with eviction prevention funds. We just kicked off last summer a prevention endowment initiative to support that program in perpetuity. We have a racial equity and advocacy committee because we realize that as much as we can start program after program after program, but until the systems change, the systems that hold up the inequity, until those change, the trickle down is not going to happen. The community and the organizations and the households will continue to be impacted negatively. So we have a racial equity and advocacy committee that meets monthly. Lori Mahoney's on that committee, and we talk about, we do the hard work. We talk about the uncomfortable, we have the uncomfortable conversations. We hold our organization accountable. We make sure the strategic plan that we developed in 2021 has equity woven into every tactics and every strategy. We put together a guest advisory committee, and this is so important to the work we do. We invited folks with lived experience to join this committee, folks that have been through our shelter program, to instruct every aspect of our organization. They helped to write our appeal letter this year. We took part in the Interrupt Racism Change Team initiative. That was a 12-month initiative to talk about interrupting and dismantling systemic racism in our systems and our organizations. And what can you all do? Do what you're doing, right? Learn, continue to learn, be open to learning, absorb it into your soul, into your hearts, learning about housing instability. It's not othering, it affects all of us. Explore how your faith traditions, core beliefs intersect with the mission and vision of Family Promise and housing. Engage with friends and families like I know you all do. Advocate, pay attention, and ask the hard questions. And then advocacy opportunities. So right now we have 2 advocacy opportunities. We just posted this one to our social media. By April 28th, we have an opportunity to go to Office of Temporary Disability and ask them to receive or to increase the shelter allowance. This opportunity comes around every 5 years. So it's the amount of money a family that's receiving TANF, so cash grant, that is used for housing expenses. And because the shelter allowance portion is so low, most families use their entire cash grant for housing. Example, for a total grant for a family of 3, I said this before, is $786. So what we want to do is call or write in. I can get you this link. Monroe County shelter allowance for 3 people is $343, which is $843 below the fair market value of $1,186. So not only is it the shelter allowance a fraction of HUD's fair market rent, there are no decent apartments priced at or below this amount. So use your voice to advocate for an increase in this shelter allowance. And again, I can give you the link to act on this advocacy opportunity. And the second advocacy opportunity, you already heard from Ryan. Go to the Housing Justice for All website. There is an opportunity there to add your name to support good cause eviction protections and the Housing Assistance Voucher Program, and ask our representatives to pass good cause and HAVP in the budget. Extremely important. Like Ryan said, they've been working on this for many, many years, and it would address some of the inequities that I've talked about today. Just closing with a quote. I think it's important to think about our separation in our neighborhood. And when we think about housing, those lines that separate us and the proximity that we need to gain in order to truly be compassionate and passionate about addressing these issues. As a society and as an organization within the greater society, we have a choice when we think about race and those invisible but marked lines that separate our neighborhoods. Either we believe there's an inherent reason that people of a specific ethnicity or race are disproportionately poor, unemployed, or underemployed, in prison, inadequate housing, or homeless, or we believe that there are systemic causes at play. And Klaus Ellers, who's the former CEO of Family Promise, states, we cannot accept the former, but then we must not tolerate the latter. And the great James Baldwin, that I'm sure you've heard this quote before, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. So thank you all. And Denny, do we want to take questions?
Please, yes. Thank you so much, Kim and Ruth. Your message is profound, it's compelling, and it's overwhelming. We've got so much laid before us, and please respond to Ruth and to Kim.
If I could just jump in right there for one little piece, that overwhelming part that Denny just mentioned is what we need to avoid, because when something is overwhelming, then we shut down, we don't try to do anything about it. So we need to recognize that we are powerful people and we can do something about these immediate crises that we're hearing about, like housing equity for all these people who are so desperate for it. And also, we can and must do something about this climate crisis, because if we don't, it's going to steal any resources that are even available now for housing, for any of those things we want to pour money into it. Because what happens is when a crisis happens, without questioning it, we pour the money into it. The hurricane, the fire, the flood, we respond to that immediate action. We need to shift that so that we're putting the resources into avoiding those by changing the system now and preventing those kinds of things from happening. So we can't do one or the other. We have to do both. We have to do what congregations have done forever, which is take care of the immediate needs that they see people have in our community. But we can't let taking care of those immediate needs distract us from this challenge that people find more challenging, but our very earth, our very earth that sustains us. So, we're people of faith. If we are not going to get that message across that we need to care for the very earth that sustains us, then who's going to do it? And in some ways, we're leaving it. The young people that I engage with, and by young, I mean anybody under 60, really, once you get up there, the young people that I engage with are mostly not affiliated with congregations anymore. They don't see congregations as mattering because they see this crisis happening and they're engaged and busy with it. We need to make sure they see that people of faith care too. That we're all in this together and we need to make a difference. So, questions for any of us open to that?
What are some of your congregations doing this climate change?
Sorry, I just realized that I thought I'd be done earlier and I need to get my husband to a doctor's appointment. He had a shoulder replacement. I'm the transportation. I'm off.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ruth.
Bye, Ruth.
What are you all doing for Earth Day in your congregations or in your agency, wherever is your world? What's special something, or what are you emphasizing? Oh, come on. Do I have to tell you about my bake sale? We are going to lay out material about climate change at our bake sale this week at Assumption. But I hope it's mentioned in the Prayer of the Faithful in all of your congregations. It's something that you can do. You can write to the person who is responsible for that role in your congregation to see that prayer is lifted. And we have this expression that's run amok recently: thoughts and prayers don't matter. But you see, everyone on this call knows thoughts and prayers do matter. It's when you don't complete the sentence and leave that phrase that it seems to some people irrelevant. The people on this call, we know how much thought has to go into safe, affordable, available housing and every aspect of climate change and every other justice issue, and how much prayer has to go into it too. And the expression, pray for the hungry, feed the hungry. That's how prayer works. Prayer puts us in touch with all of the power that has ever been to make a positive difference in whatever aspect is on our hearts and minds. The Holy Spirit, whatever you call this power, is working. It's working through certainly the presenters today, Ruth and Ryan and Asim and Kim, are cooperating with grace, working with God. And each of us is too, when we don't use safe, affordable, single-use plastic. Name some things. Let's use our last few moments together to name some of the practical, simple ways that we can make a positive difference. Yes, Debbie. Debbie, you're muted.
Really nutty question. We go to FEMA when we have fires, floods, and so forth. Why can we not go to FEMA for temporary housing units that they bring to such an area and plunk them down some space in Rochester to have housing for these crisis emergencies? We do not apparently have enough housing for families that desperately need it. So they go to a hotel for a little bit, or one of those apartments you showed. But we seem to need much more than that.
We do.
Couldn't we not go to FEMA and say, we are a city in crisis and we need whatever, 80 units?
And who do we need let know that, Debbie? It's a wonderful idea.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with how to do this, but I don't know, contacting FEMA and stating we're in a state of emergency. We don't have enough space for people.
We are indeed.
I don't know. I said it was a nutty question. I have no idea
No,
how to do
no,
it.
it's not nutty. When you saw the
Yeah.
statistic that Kim gave
Yeah.
us about
Right.
right up through the years, how 80% of the affordable housing investment by the federal government was cut
Yes.
from helping people in desperate need. An incidence of desperate, Marilyn, yes.
I
Your
think
hand is up.
I think Virginia was before me.
Oh, I'm sorry. Virginia, would you like to go first? Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that right now the Sisters of Mercy are at their chapter, which will give us what we're going to be doing in the next 5 years. And right now it looks like it's environmental issues.
Mhm.
And also one of our associates just got a $250,000 grant for Hope Housing. So we'll be working with Hope Housing too.
And tell us a little bit about Hope Housing. Where is it located?
Well, it actually is going to be in what they do is take families who have been displaced for whatever reason, whether they were evicted, whether they, have lost their home, whatever. And they take families and they will house them. But then what they do is very similar to what Bethany House does. Gets them on their feet, gets them into a job, gets them into training, gets them into education, and in the meantime, take care of health issues that children might have, health
Good.
issues that the family
Good.
might have.
Mhm.
So that's going to be right now. I guess the list is like 100 something people, and we have the ability to house like 40 families.
And is that local?
That is local.
Beautiful. Well, we need that information on the 211 emergency call line along with Family Promise.
Right.
Desperately. Yeah. Thank you. Marilyn.
Yes, I just wanted to say, it makes a difference when people know what's going on. And like I stated earlier, we got Reverend Ted on the line, and we've got Lori Mahoney, these people that work with RAIDS, and they know of some things that's going on. It's sad when the Band-Aid has to be put on because you don't have any other recourse. But if you knew something different, you would do differently. And like the individual, the woman just said previously, well, who do we get in touch with? That should not be. Some of us, there's some answers right on this Zoom that we can do some things. But people just don't know how to navigate the system. And, people are hurting out there. And the thing, it's like a domino effect. Make no mistake. You get put out of a house, you got kids, they can't go to school, you got a sick child, you can't get around. It's a domino effect. And it just, sometimes a family never recovers. It never recovers from that, just getting put out on the street. And I know that's what's going on now. A month or so ago, I walked with Sister Beth downtown at the transit center, and I think Pick was with us, trying to, just talking to people. Do you need housing? Do you need this? Can we help you with this? There's a lot going on, but then we're siloed. We're siloed in some of the stuff that we're doing. And I'm hoping as RAS continue to find solutions to make a better Rochester, a beloved Rochester, we come together so we can work together and then we're not siloed. I enjoyed going out with Sister Beth because there are people out there hurting. They're hurting and they don't know what's available. So I look forward to talking with Lori and Reverend Ted, to join up. I know I'm on enough stuff as it is now, but you know, if I can do anything as clergy, because a lot of times it comes to us. And the first thing we do is that's what I down to try to keep this child from you running away from home. No, you're not coming over here to stay at my son's house because you can get in trouble. We got to do something for you. And then that was a domino effect. It went to the mother. And then from the mother, it went to the baby that was sick. And she wasn't going to school, the child that was trying to find a place. She ran away from home. So I know those of us that are on this call, we're about being serious. But the only way we can do it is that we connect and we talk to one another and we forge relationships.
Yeah. That's one of the purposes of this caucus, that we do share. You know, Ibero-American League, who was featured just a couple of months ago, and Father Tracy Advocacy Center makes referrals and does this hand holding of getting people to appointments and getting their prescriptions and driving them to meet with the landlords and work out on eviction. I personally have been working on 2 cases of evictions, both family of 6. One is a couple with 4 children under 12. The other one is a family of 6 from Eritrea who's been here 5 years. The other family I just mentioned has only just arrived last week. One of them is being evicted this week, and the other one is being paid for by Catholic Family Center Refugee Resettlement. And there's a whole lot of people working on this, but to make it happen, but the basic problem is the radical injustice. 80% of the federal investment in affordable housing has been cut, never to be reinstated. We've got to change that. We've got to make that different. I have a couple of announcements to make quickly before I join Ralph Carter on his call with Jim Lunsford.
Denny?
Yes.
Denny, can I just respond quickly to Reverend Cunningham? I just wanted to, I hear you about the siloing, and I wanted to make everyone here aware. You may know that the mayor is doing a community address this evening.
Yes.
Yeah, so he was on the Homeless Services Network meeting this morning talking about the Housing Quality Task Force. So Lori, we should connect about that, because I hear you with siloing. There's this Housing Quality Task Force that the mayor has, then we had the race report on housing, and they really need to be talking and communicating. I just wanted to let everybody know that, you know, knowledge is power, and we should all tune in to hear the mayor.
And how can we do that, Kim?
Let me just check this.
As Kim is checking that, let me say that there's a conflict. I'll be at the Rochester City School District and then walking to, I think it's the Public Safety Building, with a group that gathers at the Rochester City School District at 5:30 tonight. But please, if
Yeah,
you
we'll
don't
be
do that, do
walking
let
there.
Kim.
We
Pardon
will
me?
be walking there and then over to the police station.
Yeah, so some of us will be doing that, and some of us can watch Malik Evans. And Kim, how can we access that?
I just put the text on for the live. I added the chat to the chat. All right, sorry, I added the link to the chat about the live stream. It's tonight at 6 o'clock. Yeah, 6 o'clock, live stream 2023 State of the City address at 6 p.m. You'll be able to watch the live stream on that link I put into chat, as well as on Spectrum Cable.
Yeah, can I just jump in? So the siloing is just so real in Rochester, and I'm glad you pointed it out, Reverend Cunningham. And Lori is on one of the Urban League CART teams about the housing implementation for the race report. And I'm on the one for job creation and business development. And it really is like trying to get the city to talk to the county, to talk to us, to talk to anybody. There's just so much siloing. And we did put the link in the chat earlier. There's a forum on Monday night from 6 to 8 about the implementation of the race report. And I'd urge anybody who can to get to that. It's just a webinar format, but the second half will be some questions. But just even to say, hey, look, you're not talking to us. We need to be at the table, because we're looking to find out who's not at the table to get some of these implementation of the race report to happen. So yeah, and thanks so much for all you do, Kim, and for this talk with us.
Yes, thank you so much. there is so much to be done, and I greatly appreciate all the work each of you is doing. It's making an enormous difference, and yet it's a drop in the bucket. We've got to empower more and more people. Pray for us who'll go on the Faith in Action training in New York City next week. And we hope to come back with more organizational skill. It's wonderful to share information, but it's something else to bump it up a couple of levels and make things happen because of the information shared. But in the meantime, Kim is doing the work 24 hours a day, and God bless you, Kim. I am so grateful, and we all are. Keep on trucking. Let me know what you need at the next meeting, which will be the third Wednesday in May, and keep in touch. Yesterday, I sent to you, and most of you, an invitation to read the front page of yesterday's Democrat and Chronicle, an article called Tennessee Expulsions Bring to Life Civil Rights Era of the 60s. And it's a wonderful article written by Associated Press writers and two others. That's in AP wires as well as in the DNC front page yesterday. And it cheers us on for advocating for voting rights, for other civil rights. And I invite you to read that article. Ask me for the link if you want it. But honest to God, you can Google the words Tennessee expulsions and then something about, I got it right here.
Civil rights.
Tennessee expulsions echo 1960s civil rights movement. And you'll get that and read it. It cheers us on to advocate and to address this change in the civil rights legislation, and other civil rights need a reboot. And this is connecting the dots of all of these justice issues. Thank you for what you're doing, and keep in touch with one another and with me so that we can really get the conversations going and more things happening. Shari Halliday Kwan, who's the pastor of First Unitarian Church on Winton, and Barbara Grosh, who's a member of League of Women Voters, responded to my request about this Tennessee legislators who were so prophetic at the legislature in Tennessee, and are willing to work on that civil rights issue of voting rights this summer. So I can put you in touch with them if that's of interest to you, but read the article and see what you want to do with it. Thank you, and God bless.